just to start, I want to set the stage a little bit about who we are, where do we fit into EMC, and how did we get to where we are, almost as individuals. John sort of introduced me. I have a background in, my previous role was, I effectively ran the websites, whether it's EMC.com, our intranet site, extranet site, that kind of thing. And I had a large amount of people that reported to me, including to these folks here, who did various things. A lot of it was, Amy was our website manager, and she worried about a particular audience on the extranet. Steve was doing much the same kind of thing. Ellen worried about user administration across all the platforms that we have at EMC. And we worked in this large organization called corporate marketing, which is a subset of EMC's marketing organization, which, as you might guess, is huge. 3 years ago, we had a new CMO come in, Jeremy Burton, who really put a new twist and a new mindset on what marketing meant at EMC. I'm not afraid to say marketing sort of took the back seat for a lot of years. It was a very sales-oriented company, an engineering-oriented company, with good reason. When Jeremy came in, flicked a switch and said, we're going to do things a little differently around. And so marketing started to grow, and hugely grow, and we're all part of corporate marketing. Think, that typical service-oriented, headquarter-oriented kinds of positions. So about 2 years ago or so, we were doing our regular jobs, running websites and worrying about all the piece parts that go with that. I'll be frank with you, when I say running a website, somebody else made that thing run. I don't know how that works. It's not my thing. I'm worried about the content, the messaging, how it looks, and what the user experience is, not how the thing runs. I say that sometimes, people say, oh, are you using this or that? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, as the new marketing organization sort of came into play, it became really obvious to some of the new heads that came in that the way things were working here, there was a lot of difficulties. There's always been a lot of difficulties, and there still are. That's always going to be the case. But we recognized really two business problems. The first was from the perspective of corporate marketing, and let me just explain corporate marketing. Think brand and creative, web teams, SEO, mobile marketing, what am I missing?
Social media.
Social media.
EMC TV.
Well, EMC TV, right. All those sort of big picture things that take place in a marketing organization. That's the group we are part of. This group has a fundamental problem, and that is people came at them every single day of the week and said, I need you to do this, and I need you to do this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this Wednesday, and I need this Friday, I need this 2 weeks from now, I need. And each functional group within corporate marketing sat there and took in, this is a $5 fee for me. Make my card.
You just have to dance.
So each of the functional heads of these corporate marketing groups spent half their day listening to somebody come in, telling them what they needed from that particular group. And the way it would work is the functional head of that organization would sit there and take it in and, okay, yeah, I understand what you need, yeah, okay, fine, right? Hour-long meeting, every meeting is an hour long. That's to make sure you're late for your next meeting. They listen, they take the person and say, all right, I'm all set with brand and creative, and they get up and they walk out. Now, Mr. Head of Brand and Creative does this. Okay, this is number 376 of these I received in the last 6 days. Where in the pile should I put it? And I'm honest with this. They make the decisions based on this. How did you treat me the last time I worked with you? If you were you-know-what to me, you know where this piece of paper goes? Down the bottom of this stack. If you're a good guy or a nice woman, you're friendly to me, and we got along great, you may go up here. Or I start making decisions that say, I think the most important thing going on in this company is this. It just has nothing to do with that. So I've made my decision. Now you multiply that problem by 14 functional groups. Each group making their own decision about what's the most important thing, who should go to the top of the list, and what should get worked on. So from the business end of it, from the corporate marketing view, it's a horror show. 14 people, 14 organizations working at their own pace with their own decision making about what's important. On the other side of the coin, you have the rest of the business view. And by that I mean other people in marketing, outside of corporate marketing. There's a ton of those people. Every other part of the company may come forward. All those people who go to corporate marketing say, this is what I need, and have that conversation. What they're faced with is they say, I need to get this done. My boss and my boss's boss and his boss is telling me, get it done. So where do I go? Oh, I think that's corporate marketing. So I go to corporate marketing, and I show up on the door, and I say, can I get an hour with you? Because again, everything's an hour. Yeah, come on in, tell the story. I tell the whole story to the brand and creative guy. Great, I'm all set there. Walk out of that office, go back to their office, get back on Outlook and say, I gotta set a meeting with the mobile people. Yeah, okay. Get a meeting with them, sit down with them. They spend their whole life knocking on doors and trying to figure out, in a big company, who are the right people to go to? Who am I supposed to talk to? A couple problems with that. From their perspective is, they just wasted about 9 hours of their life running around telling the same story. Secondly, you know that Norman Rockwell painting that has a woman gets on the phone and she talks to this person, they talk to that person, they go all the way back down, and the story at the beginning and the story at the end bear no resemblance to each other. That's exactly what happens. Just because I heard a request in a certain way doesn't mean Steve heard that same request in the same way. So you can have 14 variations of what that story is, what the ask is, what the ultimate goal, what the ultimate objective is. So that business person's frustrated. They just wasted a whole bunch of their time. They told this story 94 times. And really, the message getting across isn't necessarily the same. So on top of that, they, not being part of corporate marketing, made a judgment about who to go to. Of the 14 groups in the organization, I went to 6 of them. But really, I missed out on, this is my favorite one. You build a website, you build a microsite, the whole thing, and at the end of the whole process, somebody says, what are the metrics you're getting on that? I go, what do you mean? I said, well, what did you do with search engine marketing and search engine optimization to see what we know, so we can track these? Oh, yeah, didn't do that. Because they didn't know that's what you're supposed to do. So they don't even know which of the 14 groups to go to. They pick 6, and they do the best they can with it. So those are the 2 problems that existed in corporate marketing. It builds frustration. The bigger the company, the more stuff. And I'll tell you a secret about EMC. Somebody else is from EMC here, right?
It hasn't started
It
yet.
hasn't started yet. Well, I'm going to teach you what you're going to need to know. Here's the EMC DNA over the last 20 years. The more things you produce, the better you are. Right? Look at my stack. I did all this. What's in it? I don't know. That's kind of boring, but look at it all. Look how much I did. The more you do, the better you are. What does that say about prioritization? What does that say about what should we be focusing on? Okay. But that's the way people work there. So I was tasked, lucky me, with you got to help figure this out. So I took a step back and said, what are we going to do about it? So I put together a crack team. I didn't have a new job, I just had an additional job. And I walked around and said, which of you sucker people would like to join me in this particular job of looking at how do we do things differently here in marketing? And I got a few people to raise their hands. And so we took on a second job, and we took a step back. We said, how do we do this? We got in a room, we met, I think it was 2 hours a day. Is that about right? That we,
Oh, no, it was
at the
half,
beginning.
half a day every day.
we got together, sat in a room and said, it's ground zero. What are we trying to solve? What are the problems? How do we do it? What do we do? We started to talk about methodologies and plans and ideas and that kind of thing. And somewhere along the way, it made sense. Somebody brought up the ideas, probably me. It was really good. That what we should do is, in fact, not just make it up, but get out there and talk to those 14 functional groups. And say, what do you see as the issues? Actually, it was Steve and Amy who came up with it, it was not me. But what do you see as the issues? What bugs you? What's driving you crazy? I'm sort of rolling it all up into big piles of paper and that kind of thing. But literally talking to them saying, why aren't you succeeding more than you want to succeed? And we took all that input, a lot of interviewing, a lot of talking, with a lot of people looking at you like, why are you asking me this? You've seen that before. Like, there's a reason behind this. What are you doing? But we kept pressing onward and looking at what the real problems were. When we sat back down, we said, let's talk about a methodology for doing this. And this is where the concept for us came up of Agile marketing. Some of us, myself, a little bit of Steve, have had experience working from a marketing perspective with marketing platforms. You're going to build a new platform, you were working with IT or development, right? So all of a sudden, this is Agile development thing you hear about. And so we had a little taste of it over the past few years before that, how that was and what it was about. But we started digging a little bit, we started to read about it, we started to talk to people about it, and we took the concept and says, okay, and this is our term, how do we marketize it? How do we take Agile development and marketize it? And we looked at it all and we really took things and said, nope, that's not going to work, that doesn't work, that's not the way we do things, it's not the way we do things. We threw some things out, but we took some other concepts and said, this would be really cool to try. We took that forward and up the chain, and my boss said, do it, pilot that, try it. Fine, so I got my team who like to work extra hours, come in and said, we're going to do that. We have a program or a way we do things in marketing at EMC, very campaign-based. We have groups of people who work on various specific campaigns from cradle to grave kind of thing. And we took one of those campaigns and a friendly leader and said, we want to try something with you. So we built out a pilot and we started to work with that particular campaign. And we took our methodology that we made up in those conference rooms on those 2 hours or half a day efforts and put it forth in there. And I'm sort of going to take you through a little bit what that is and how we got there. So our approach was to become effectively a front door. That's where this term, the engagement office, comes in. We wanted to become a front door and solve one big problem, and that is keep people from having to figure it out themselves. What do I do? How do I do it? Who do I go to? We wanted to do that by being collaborative, bringing people together at one time, and being flexible about it, and that's where we get the Agile piece. But I like to tell the story, and my team here is going to throw up, but the way we position it is that come knock on our door, ring the doorbell. We promise we will answer you. That's another big thing. Not a week from now, not 2 weeks from now, when things slow up a little, we'll answer you immediately. That in and of itself can make people stand up and cheer for you. Look, they answered, they're ready to do something, this is great. And we said, all we want you to do is tell us what your objective is, what are you trying to accomplish? And that will be a phone call, that can be a phone call to start with. It's effectively, ring the doorbell, we'll answer the door, we'll talk to you. Step into the foyer, just tell me what you're here for. And one of my team members will listen to them. And they'll help make a decision, because what we're not about is red tape, we're not about getting in people's way, we're not about slowing things up. One of the biggest problems we had from the beginning was the feeling of, they're just going to get in the way of what I'm trying to do. This is from our own corporate marketing people. Like, we don't need you. We don't need you in front of us. We know how to do it. Big pile, I might put the pile thing here, yeah, you know how to do it. But we get in there, but what we've promised is, we're not getting in anybody's way, we're not going to prevent anybody from talking to anybody else, but we're going to hear you out, we're going to make some decisions when we first hear about what it is you're trying to achieve. When you come into the foyer, we're going to talk to you. If you have enough meat there that says you're trying to get this, this, and this, and this out of corporate marketing, we're going to shuffle you into the living room. And we're going to say, all the right people are going to be in that living room, and you're going to deal with them. If in fact you come and say, it says 16 gigabytes on that page on the website, but it really used to say 24 gigabytes now, we're not going to set up an engagement for you. We're not going to make you go through anything. We're going to say, right there, this is how you get that fixed. come on in, come to the front hallway, grab a cookie as you go through the kitchen, get your 24 gigabytes and go out the back door, you're done. Okay? We're not slowing up the process, we're not adding red tape. But if you have multiple things going on with multiple groups in corporate marketing, come on in the living room, we're going to talk about it. What that boils down to is we have a mission. My huge, expansive team, which I'll show you in a minute, has a mission, and that is to get across.
Can I don't want to interrupt your flow.
No.
Just to make sure I understood your last part, or a key takeaway from it is, as people went around and communicated, they had to have a certain discipline about when they first introduced themselves to you, saying, you know, here's what I'm looking to achieve,
Yep.
here are my objectives, and then that way you could immediately give them advice.
Yes.
You know, great, let's work together, or you know what, not now, or go somewhere else.
But it isn't even not now, it goes somewhere else. Here's how you go do that.
Yeah, okay.
That was key. It wasn't like, no, it's not us.
Yeah.
It's, here's how you go do that.
Right.
So my team are advocates, and that's another sell that we have to have to the corporate marketing teams, is we are advocates for everything they do. We are, I don't want to use the word experts, because we're not experts. We know what they do at a certain level. And we're smart enough and educated enough about what they do to say, you need to talk to Bill over here, and he'll do this for you. He sits right there.
Okay, good, thanks.
What was I saying again?
Dave, the other thing I'd make on that is after 2 years of this, we're pretty good advocates because we understand those functional areas, but we can go a little further and say to the business sponsor, go talk to Bill, but let us tell you, when you go talk to Bill, he's going to ask you these 4 questions, so be ready to answer those to really be effective in that conversation with Bill. So we become advocates for the business sponsor who needs those resources by equipping him to have a good conversation with those corporate marketing groups.
Exactly.
But that took time
Right,
to get
ready
to
And I
that.
would,
Yeah.
also, one more thing I found, I think we've all found, is that because we do get back to people, people have kind of heard that, and we'll get inquiries that really aren't even related to things that people in corporate marketing would do, but it's more like, I would like to do this, do you have any idea where I can get this information? And
That's
it
the
might
lost
be-
souls who come looking for,
Yeah.
I heard they
Yeah.
know things.
And I was like, you know, I had an inquiry recently, and I really asked them to go to 3 different groups, one of which was to check on EMC.com, our website, but the other 2 things had nothing to do with corporate marketing, to get the information they wanted.
No,
It's just kind of, I had to think about it, but clearly they didn't know what to do, or they wouldn't have reached out. So you just,
That comes
Sort
from
of do that.
reputation over
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna tell you about the bad parts too. But that takes 2 years to build, but we get inquiries that have nothing to do with anything that we do, but we try to help people because the word's gotten out a little bit as we direct people in the right places, even when they don't have to fully.
I was in
engage
a
with us.
content marketing world last week, and it's really interesting because there were a lot of discussion about, you know, as marketers out there, we're trying to become, you know, very more valuable for our audience, even if it's not something that we sell, right? So it's the same thing. They talk about Hilton helping people find a job in Florida, even though it's not
What's it
hotel
called?
related.
It's called consulting,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and it adds great value, yeah.
Huge, people just feel comfortable with it. So we put forth sort of our own little mission statement here, but it's about the things about being agile and what we're really trying to achieve in terms of goals for people. They're really pretty straightforward, and I don't like a lot of bullets on my slides these days and that kind of thing, but these words are important to us, and that is, we need to do fewer things better. As I said, the DNA in the EMC is, look what I did. It's all crap, but look what I did. I did 10 million things, congratulations. Our point is, let's do 10 things and do them really well. And let's have the right people work on them so that the brand and creative mind, of which mine couldn't be further away from that, is able to spend their time designing, branding, thinking about those kind of things, and not scheduling meetings and listening to this, and go through it again, and rescheduling meetings and pulling people together and figuring out who else they need to pull together. They shouldn't be doing that. Spend the time designing and doing all that good creative work that you do. The next is, I don't care if your business is 10 people or 10 million people. The concept of fighting fires or being proactive versus reactive everybody always feels I'm reactive. Everybody just comes to me, I just have to, whatever you tell me to do, I'll have to do. I wish I could have the time to figure out what I should go out and do, as opposed to being asked or hurried to do. We're trying to find the time and the direction for people so that they can work in a proactive manner. Think about what you want to do versus everything being a firefight for them. I talked a little bit before about prioritization. That's obvious. That's one of my main business problems that exists. Who's making those decisions? I, as an individual, am making it in my own world, and 14 functional groups around corporate marketing are making a decision each on their own. So where do those priorities lie? How do you know? Because you listen to the president of the company talk, or your senior vice president of marketing, you listen to him talk, and that's how you figure it out? Are all those real every week? No, it all changes all the time. Well, we're trying to help people say, we should all have the same priority. Let's talk about this. Where do we think we need to be? What do you know? What do you know? And we'll prioritize the work appropriately, instead of 14 groups trying to figure it out on their own. And you know what that leads to is simple frustration from the business owner who's trying to get one thing done through a whole bunch of groups. They can't get it done, because down here for here and this up here for this person. Finally, the last two, transparency and accountability. And I think my team works so hard on this, and it's really a difficult concept for people to get over. And that was, we are going to be open about everything. Everything gets talked about in front of everybody else. Awfully uncomfortable some of the time. Nobody likes that. Everybody adds, oh, I'm good. Yeah, I'm all set. Yeah, good. Inside they're saying, shit, I haven't come close to doing that in I don't know how long. But when you force the transparency, it builds accountability. There's no ducking. What did Amy call it once? The corporate nod.
Corporate nod.
Yep, I'm good. I got it. Went inside. No, you don't. But if you're forced to talk about it and show where you stand and admit, which by the way, you build a rapport with people that it's okay to admit, I'm not there. I fell behind. This happened and I'm not there. That's not going to be ready. Bad news. But no news is worse than bad news. Because the person doesn't know, they don't know what to expect, they're not able to make a change or deviate from the plan to get themselves where they need to be. If you're transparent and accountable to your work, everybody knows what's going on. And we force that in an open forum.
I just want to add one thing. One of the reasons why we were successful in the beginning with this is that we had an executive team that really backed us up. And I think that's one of the things that I hear about in software development, where people want to introduce Agile, they want Agile to come into their companies, and they don't have that. It's like the bottom up is excited. Here it was the upper management was like, yes, go do this. So we were very lucky to have that executive backing.
And let's be honest, I have the right people in the room. We were not full of confidence about what we were doing here. We were swimming in uncharted waters. We had no real experience with it, but we just kept plugging and plugging and plugging, thinking, we'll see, we'll see. We also had our own jobs. It wasn't like we were hanging out there, if we fail at this, we're gone. But we wanted to succeed and we wanted to try to help. We saw all the problems, we lived the problems. So we tried to get there, but it was unnerving for us at the same time of like, I don't know how this is going to work. So we did put it in place, we did move forward, we did do a pilot, and I'll explain just a little bit in more detail. The primary participants in every engagement that we have, think coming into that, ringing the doorbell, coming into the foyer, yes, we need to talk to you, come on into the living room. The three primary types of people involved are the business owner, that's very simple, that's the person who wants to do something, that can be from anywhere in the company. The engagement manager, the person that we assign to the particular task or set of objectives, and the corporate marketing subject matter experts. That's that group of people that we help, we work with the business owner to say, you need to talk to this group, this group, this group, this group, and this group. Anybody else you think, no, you're good, but what about this, this, and this? And they say, oh, yeah, we should be talking to them too. We pull those people together. And like an agency, we build a virtual team. That's the team for that engagement moving forward. Physically, this is the wild, expansive team that I have right now. This is not just a pattern back so we can show you our pictures, but I wanted to give you a feel for fact, how many people we're working with, it's not 1 million people. Truth is, we've got to a point right now where I'm confident moving forward into my 2014 that I'm going to get more heads because it's working, it's very beneficial to the company. Heads are hard to come by, they're hard to come by for everybody, I know. But we're short-suited now. We weren't at the beginning. We were trying to get people to engage with us. Now we're sort of, it continues to climb on us for us to keep up.
Hey, David?
Yes.
Quick question. So how did Jeremy more tactically support this? Or
Really simply, great question. Tactically, he stood up in his quarterly all-hands meeting that everybody shows up in, or if you're in California where a chunk of the marketing organization lies, and watch it online. He stood up there and he said, this is what we're going to do, these are the people you're going to engage with, and we are going to embrace this. And he said, I love it. This is the guy who turned the wheels in EMC marketing. So when he said it, it just gave us the blessing that we needed without having to run around saying, so-and-so told us to do this, and so-and-so told us to do that, and we have to do it this way. So that, and I'm still going to talk about the negatives because it's not all as smooth as that, but that's how we got the representation from the Jeremys of the world, that this is a good thing. How'd that go backwards? The other important point is, I'm going to take you through what our steps are, how we get from beginning to end. But before that, we worked really hard on this part. And that's the mindset that we use and try to exude to everybody else that we work with about the way we're going to do it. And that is, we're going to be social about everything. That means we're going to share, we're going to have content and plans and methodologies out on a community, and it's available for everybody in the company to look at. Of course, the people in the engagement are really the only ones that care about it, but it's open. It's all out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to be social about it. We're going to be collaborative. That's just us. We're going to pull groups together. We're going to work together, not in silos. We're going to be in focus. I talked about transparency, really critical for us. Put it all on the table, good, bad, or ugly. Flexible, we're agile, we're an agile team. We have a methodology, but we're agile, we're flexible within that. What that means is, we're not going to do, and we live with this all the time. We say, you're the agile team, I want you to do it this way. Be agile. They throw that one at us all the time. Okay. Our answer is, yeah, we're agile, we have a methodology. I'll tell you how we're going to be agile. If your priority changes from here to here, we're going to change that. We're going to be agile and flexible, we're going to change that priority for you. But we're not going to throw every piece of methodology we have to the wind because you decided you want to do it this way. That happens a lot. We're empowered. To your question about Jeremy, and as Amy points out, we have that executive backing that says this is the right way to do business. We like what we see. We're global, that's very important to us. We lived for 100 years out in Hopkinton, Massachusetts going, okay, we'll do it, and corporate will love it. Everything here, people here in Hopkinton will love it, and we blossomed a little. We said people here in Massachusetts will love it, and people here in the United States would love it, but we just can't seem to get outside of those borders. So we work in the engagement team to try to force the questions all the time. What does this mean about translations? What's the market saying in Eastern Europe about this? Is it applicable? Is it not applicable? And we force those questions and those kind of things into the business discussion within an engagement. We live by these words. We try to make everything simple. Our steps, there's 4 or 5 of them. That's what we do, and we work with it. We prioritize, and we keep moving ahead, and we talk, and we be transparent, and we keep moving ahead. We don't overcomplicate things. It's extremely frustrating for people. The fact that we just say, this, let's go. Let's not worry about everything under the sun. Let's do these things, and let's go. Very positive response to that, to keeping things simple all the time. Upper management help. It's like, fail and learn. We've been told, and we've done it. Try it. Just try it. If you fail, you're not going to get fired. Just try it. If you fail, all I ask you guys to do is try it. If you get kicked down, stand up, put your boots back on, and try it a different way. fail quickly, learn from it, get moving again. That is the greatest feeling to have, that you have support to be able to do that, because we try to do new things all the time. I'm talking about tonight to how we got to where we are today. I'm going to talk about at the end. We are nowhere near done, nowhere near nailed it, and if we think we have, we're mistaken, because this is evolution and it should be changing all the time. The other is, and this is sort of the new marketing idea at EMC, get it 80% of the way there and get it out there. We lived in a company where we would go a year working on something. That's not exactly perfect, quite yet. Almost, one more run at it and we'll get it. Just one more edit, one more view of this, one more rerun of that software, we'll get it. We don't live by that anymore, and we teach those people in the engagements that we're not going to wait around. 80%, we're almost there, it's ready to go, close enough, get it out there. We'll tweak it. The quality and the timing of what it takes to get things done when you work in that mode is so much better. Because as we all know, you go into the mode of, well, we'll fix it, we'll get it right, we'll get it right, we'll get it right. By the time you get it right, you missed the boat. It's all gone now. You had a chance, you didn't grab the chance. You were so busy getting it perfect, the opportunity is gone. So that's the mindset we use.
I have a question about the 80%. So with that, then you'll just iterate. I mean, it's digital. A lot of it's digital anyway, so you'll just make the tweaks as needed. It's not a big deal.
Yep,
So
exactly
get it out
right.
there.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
If you have an important message and there's a window, right? In some things there's a window. If you
Yeah.
get it out there in the window, 80% right, and somebody takes that in, they got 80% of what you wanted to get across. Maybe 20% isn't exactly perfect, but maybe they'll move on that because the timing was right. If you wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait for perfection, in whose eyes, by the way, your eyes or your eyes or your eyes, the opportunity window can disappear. And now you get it perfect, there's no more opportunity.
I'm sorry, before you get into that, how did you get everybody up to speed on the process? Did you train them on it? Is there a consultant that came in, or?
You're looking at the professional consultants here,
Yeah.
and I say that
Yeah.
fooling around, but we didn't have anybody like that. What we did was start with that pilot, and that served one business owner, but what it did serve is all the 14 functional corporate marketing groups, they were all involved in that. So they started to get a feel for it. So when we took it from a pilot to real life, the corporate marketing team was already on board. I'll talk about the negatives, was mostly on board. The business, we had to effectively advertise, talk about it wherever we can. We went on a little mission running around to as many groups as we could find within the company who would listen to us, to stand up and do the dog and pony show, to try to get that across. That worked about that much. What worked was when all the other campaigns started to utilize it, the word started to spread. And that's what Ellen was referring to earlier. The word started to spread that, geez, this team actually saved me a boatload of time. I can't believe we hear this one, and now, I never heard about you before. Where have you been? I think Amy has a story with somebody that, where have you been?
I think two words to it with the groups is course correction. As soon as, the first stand-up meeting where, the mobile team and the web team and all these teams that never even talked ever were in one room, and something came up like, oh, that image can't go on that carousel, that's gonna be a problem. Everybody heard it, they course corrected. That would have been something that would have taken weeks and probably some really bad phone calls going up the chain, or coming down from the chain. So once a lot of that course correction started happening, people were like, oh, this is good. We wouldn't have heard that, otherwise.
So for those corporate marketing teams, they feel like, oh, I gotta get in this because I can find out what's going on in these other places and save myself the grief of going down a bad path.
So how many people were in the room? Or are you having different sprints, or?
I'm gonna take you
Oh,
through
okay,
how
sorry, I
that
jumped
works.
ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're walking back. So the way we work, picture that foyer, right? You come in, you ring the doorbell, you come into the foyer. So somebody on my team, usually Steve as an example, says, okay, this is what this is, it's real. I'm gonna assign it to Amy, or I'm gonna assign it to Ellen. And they get in touch with that person, that business owner that's come forward. to have a conversation. And they ask a bunch of questions, and we call it a BOM, or business objective meeting, which is really fun because it gets totally confusing that everybody wants to use bill of materials for BOM, but that's another story. And that meeting is to say, tell me what you want to do. Tell me what is your marketing backlog of assets and activities and programs and things you're trying to achieve here. And so that person does the initial dump to the engagement manager. He says, okay, I get it, you're going to need this group, this group, this group, this group, and that business owner may go, yeah, and I need this group too. Yeah, okay. And then the advocacy comes in, where the engagement manager says, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this and that? And sometimes they say yes, and we don't want that. We're not interested in that end of it. It doesn't apply to what we're trying to do. Fine. But they run through the litany of what the opportunities are for that business owner. That's the objectives meeting. From that point on, the engagement manager takes the marketing backlog of agreed upon objectives and assets and activities that are going to happen, and they put a plan together and they say, I'm now going to contact all the relevant corporate marketing groups that need to be involved in this. And they pull them together with that business owner, and they have what's referred to as an iterative planning meeting. It's really very simple. Business owner comes in, they have a deck, they say, this is what we're trying to achieve, these are our objectives, these are our timelines, I want to get 1 of these and 9 of these and 4 of these and 17 of those, and I want them blue, and I want this, and I want 9 logos, and all that kind of thing. But they tell the story one time. So for 20 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, they tell the story. The rest of the time is spent with all of those corporate marketing functions in the same room, transparently in front of each other, asking questions. When you say this, what do you mean? Do I understand you correctly when you say you're looking for this or that? When this corporate marketing manager hears that, here's a question from another one, it triggers something in another one's mind and says, you're right, that would apply to me because that's going to come downstream to hit me. What do you mean by that? What's your real timeline associated with that? Everybody's in the same room, here's the same thing. They interact with each other about what it is we're trying to do. The backlog may get reprioritized from what came out of the business objectives meeting, because it becomes very clear that that's a year-long project. Do you want to spend your time in that now? No. All right, move these 3 things to the top. Does that help? So those groups are brought together.
So what you're saying is that someone comes through the door, and at that moment the engagement team comes in, and they're the facilitators, if you will, and bringing all the different groups together, and you call the meeting essentially. You bring all the right. You listen to them initially,
yes.
I suppose, and then you say, okay, well, we need all these people, right? And it isn't always everybody, it's
No.
just the right team. Right?
I don't think it's ever been everybody,
Right.
except for EMC World, that's all it is.
I think just to
So
add,
you bring everyone in,
Yep.
and then they start giving the objectives, and then they listen, and then that's where you start actually building the backlog. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly
and
right.
then the engagement team helps the business owner to manage that process in an agile way.
This is what I'm going to tell you now, what the engagement manager does. So they've had this iterative planning, that virtual agency-like team is now in place.
Right.
We know the 9 people involved in total. The engagement manager works with the business owner to set up what we refer to as a sprint set, a set of sprints based on all those objectives, pick a line in the priority level of the backlog, and they set a plan in place that says we're going to have 3 sprint sets, each of this many sprints in these time frames, and we're going to achieve these goals. And this is what's going to happen. Think software development. This is the piece of functionality we're going to spit out. Right? That's how the software development works. So they define those, and they start the sprints, which are on a calendar, and they run stand-up meetings, just like a development team. I think I said daily plus and minus here. When we started out, this is one of these learnings we started. We're doing it just like development does. We're going to have a daily stand-up meeting. Guess what? Once you get more than 8 engagements going at a time, and you keep pointing at the branding creative person saying, you got to come to this 15-minute stand-up at 9 o'clock, another one at 10:15, another one at 10:30, another one at 11:30, another one at 12:15, and it doesn't work. So that's when we had to take a step back and say, oh, wait a minute, we need to adjust here, be flexible in how we're going to make this work. So they run those stand-up meetings. That does not preclude business owner or I keep using brand and creative, it's just easy for me, to go off and work on something, to get down and dirty with it. That was a great worry of those brand and creative teams, or all the functional teams, is, are you gonna try to run every meeting that I have to have? I need to get to the bottom of down and dirty with these people. And our point is, we're not in the business of stopping you from working one-on-one with these people. But we're gonna look at the bigger picture and report back and be transparent about everything that's going on. So those stand-ups take place, you guys tell me, 2 to 3 times a week, or twice a week probably is the most realistic that we see.
Twice a week for them?
Yeah. They run through those and they start to produce assets and activities and end results. Sometimes they're very bound, they're done, that's the end of the story. Campaigns for us never stop. They go like this, hot and heavy, busy, 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 less busy, but they just go on forever. We have sprint sets, but we never quit with them and restart. We just ramp back up and back off a little, and ramp back up and back off a little bit. So it differs for us how an engagement may run. But at the end of a set of sprints, and we've delivered something, or some set of things, just like in the development world, we have demos. We decided, in the development world, they create functionality, and then everybody comes in and somebody does a presentation with the software, and they show, see, you can do this now, and you can move here now, and jump to that now, and fill in the blank here. We do the same thing. Instead of all these groups just working on their little piece of the pie, and off it goes, and I don't know whatever happened, hope it worked out well, we bring the completed activity, or the completed asset, or the component back, and we do effectively a dog and pony show. See what you all did? Look what it looks like, all put together. So we run that meeting, and it's basically, it started off with candy and other pieces to say thank you to people for a good job, well done. But they come together, they see their work, the results of their work, which they've never seen before. They just see the results of their little piece of the pie, but now that they see the bigger picture. That demonstration is followed by a retrospective. Every single engagement, just like in the development world, we have a retrospective. We drag everybody back, all 9 people in that particular engagement. We sit them down and we said, okay, let's honest, open, transparent, and accountable. What worked well? Write it on the board. All right, that takes about 3 minutes. Because nobody likes to, everybody says, yeah, that worked pretty good, that worked pretty good. But let me tell you what didn't work very well. That's what happens in real life. And so we sit on the board and we document everything that didn't work well. And then we go back and say, why did that happen? This is where my team comes together, all engagement managers, and support each other and say, here's the list of things that my engagements are saying aren't working well. Here's the list of Ellen's, here's the list of Amy's, here's the list of Jill's, here's the list of Carolyn's. Those aren't working well. And we start to look at those and say, what are the themes? What can we do to change the way we do business to make it work better? And finally, we look to measure ourselves. We look to measure ourselves, and we look to measure an engagement on its own. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Pitfalls. All right, all sounds great. I'm telling a great story. It's perfect. I now make $1.5 million a year. I'm so good at this. There's some problems. Scaling. Put this plan into place, and we were innocent, like, oh, well, there's 3 of us, we'll be fine. As soon as a few people get rolling on it, yeah, would you do that for us? Of course we will, we want to. It starts to go like this, and those corporate marketing groups are starting to get, all I'm doing is going to your meetings. Now, again, I don't have time to design and be creative and do all those things. So we had to address that. That was very frustrating to people, and that's where we did things like, we're not going to meet every day. We're going to meet twice a week. We made adjustments like that, and we lumped like things on top of each other a little bit so that people would kill 2 birds with 1 stone wherever possible. So we did that. Checklisting, another problem. We are not project managers, and everybody in that company wants to call us a project manager. The project manager said, I'm going to look at every single thing you do, and I'm going to ask you, did you do it? 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 And checklists. We're not checklist people. We bring people together and have them talk. We raise issues, help to raise issues, and let people hear the issue and work out a solution to that issue. It's not about us checklisting. But I tell you, it's very easy. They want us to checklist for them, and it's very easy for us to fall into that. It's a problem.
And I'd qualify that, Dave. You know, some of these engagements, like all of our product launches go through this process. Some of those engagements could last 10 weeks or more, 10, 12 weeks. So it's a judgment call throughout as to when to sort of checklist, because we really need to know from those groups, is this done or not? So we will do it, but we'll do it very selectively. And then in other cases, we'll focus more on team issues and the impact of those issues. So we make a lot of judgment calls, and of course, in the time span of those sprint sets, in terms of how we apply those techniques.
A good story for that.
Let me just get through two more, come back to that.
Alright, but
Two
it
more.
has to do it.
Yeah, okay, well, go ahead.
Right. One of the things that started with happen in the beginning was we would be in a stand-up meeting and we would ask, okay, you know, so-and-so, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? What, you know, any issues? And then they would look at us and they would tell us, like, you know, so what we had to start doing literally was we'd be in a stand-up meeting and so we'd say, you know, Ellen, you know, can you tell me? And I would literally turn my back and I just wouldn't look at them. So they had to look at their peers and they had to be accountable to their peers. So it was very awkward, but we all kind of made this fun little pact, like, let's all just turn around after we ask a question, just turn around, don't look at anybody. And it worked, so after a while I realized, you're not answering to me, you're answering to each other. So that was...
That's a great point and a good example of it.
Yeah.
It sounds silly, right, to do that? We do, that's true, we do that. And the other thing I'm thinking of that we do along those lines is, the first stand-up meetings, 9 people, 2 people come in and sit down.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not standing. And we said, well, that's good, guess what? There's no meeting until you stand. Again, it seems silly, but it's about getting people on the same page and working equally with each other. And we force those people, we can name the guilty parties.
They're not with the
gonna
company
stand up."
anymore, let's just say that.
Yeah.
They're not.
I know. But we forced it. And as Amy says, we did, you know, don't report to me, you're reporting to this team. That's who needs to know, not me. I don't really need to know. It isn't our job to worry about that. We're not the project manager, but we're helping to get you to work in the right manner.
So is there, it creates some peer pressure, if
It's
you will?
absolutely what it is.
Sales does the same thing every week when they have somebody talk about a loss
Yep.
or a win, and they have to report it back to
Exactly
the rest of
right.
their sales peers, yeah.
It forces that, the transparency and the accountability. What did I just talk about, checklisting? Change, my favorite one. You asked me, what's the biggest difficulty you had with this methodology and program and way of doing business? Without a doubt. Simple word, change. Every human being hates change. People can say like, oh, I'm a forward thinker, I'm open to everything. They are. Except check out how they mow their lawn. They do it in lines, or they go around, or they do diagonals. That's the way they do it. Don't tell them tomorrow, next week, they gotta change the way they mow the lawn, because that's the way I mow my lawn. You all have a living room, your house, your apartment, wherever you live, you have a living, you set it up so that if it's used for watching TV, you have it set up for watching TV. If it's for having company over and interacting with people, you have it set up. If I came in there and told you, John, the couch, no, over here. The chair, over here. You're not gonna like it. Even if you're open to everything in the world, you're not gonna like it. You don't like change. Nobody likes it. So when we went to corporate marketing and said, here's how we're gonna do things, they gave it the old, yeah, we know how to do our stuff. Thanks very much for coming. Appreciate it. Thanks very much. You wanna know what the killer was for us? We got to go back and say, remember when we interviewed you back 9 months ago and you told us what your issues were? We're doing this to solve this issue, and this issue. That's why we're asking you to change. And once they got forced into it a little bit and they saw issue 1, 7, and 11 get solved, they got on board. Change was done okay. But it is without a doubt the toughest part. It's just change. I know how to do brand and creative. You don't tell me how to set a meeting with somebody and get to the bottom of what I need to get to the bottom of. Most difficult part of all. The final one that I want to talk about is Big Brother. It's a natural feeling of like, who do they think? We got this all the time. Who do they think they are? They're telling us how they're going to run a meeting. This is garbage. I don't need them looking over my shoulder about my work. I know mobile marketing better than anybody else in the company, the country, probably the world. I'm the best at it. I don't need Dave Quinn and his group of lackeys trying to tell me how to do anything. That exists all over the place. So we work very, very hard to show collaboration, teamwork. We're very open with everybody because we have to break down that barrier that we're not looking over your shoulder. We're not stopping you from working one-on-one with this group or these people. Okay? Those are the major pitfalls. You guys may have some others.
I do have one. And I think it goes beyond the checklisting. People, as Dave said, want us to be the project manager. What I have found, and I'm sure everybody else has to a certain extent, I know they have, is you get people and they want to give their work to you. Would you call this meeting, run this meeting? Could you manage this part? Could you write these things down? I mean, even to the point where, and it hasn't just been me, in one of my engagements, and it's the business sponsors, they're looking for people to do the work for them. I don't really have time to do that. Can you handle that? To the point where in one of my stand-ups specifically, people literally look away from this particular person when she talks because she has tried so many times to suck people in to doing her work. I'm not a detail person. I come up with the ideas. You think, this is related to the web. You think you could take care of all this and make a project out of it? No. I don't do that, and they don't do that. There are certain things, this goes back to what the business sponsor is responsible for. We're not managing your project for you, we're facilitating it. No one in corporate marketing is managing your project for you, your engagement, your campaign. You have to have some skin in the game, you've got to take the responsibility to keep track of these elements yourself. And I don't know if anybody else has.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 problems we've run into. I'll bet you there's 55 is the truth. So I'm not trying to portray a world that is perfect here. It's difficult many times for us. We've had many, I call them come to Jesus meetings, where we sit and think, oh God, what are we going to do about this? This is such a pain. Everybody's acting like this. How are we going to get around it? What are we going to sell them on or teach them to get through this hurdle? Happens a lot for us. The next area is areas that we, from our experience, that we want to say, don't forget about this. And that's first, and maybe most importantly, that I believe, is that don't forget that whatever your world is, what we prescribe as this is the way we've done it, we don't for a second pretend to say to you, that's the way you should do it. Because we really believe, depending on the environment, depending on the culture, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve, I think Agile marketing can be anything you want it to be. Use the concepts that are out there and make them apply to your world. We're showing you what we did. I have probably most confidence that this exact model probably wouldn't work in whatever world is your world. You have to look at it and say, how do we make it fit best to our environment, to our people? Do we do 90% of our business overseas? Well, there's adjustments you're going to make in that. So there's no pure answer to this. That's very clear to us. The second is, show me, flexibility. If you're not flexible, willing to change, you're going to go down the drain. You have to show everybody, 1, that you can change your methodology, 2, that you're willing to adapt, because you're asking them to adapt, so you have to adapt. But you have to stay clear of what we talked about before, the simple, you said you're agile, I want you to do it my way. Okay? We fight that one all the time. Don't fall for it. You have a methodology, follow your methodology, but point out at the beginning what it is you're being agile about. And that's reprioritizing, changing the mode, changing what it is we're going to work on as it makes sense for the business.
Dave, just to reinforce that, one of the dynamics at EMC from senior management, these relatively new marketing guys, is they're absolutely relentless about innovation. So anybody has a freedom to try something new, like Dave said, and they expect that what's the next best thing that we're going to embrace and try within EMC to move the needle forward in marketing. So they constantly drive the organization for innovation and leading edge type activity. So we have to be flexible in our methodology to bring that into the fold, because as soon as something works, somebody tries something and it works, we're going to make that part of every product launch. So it becomes part of the recipe because it's worked. It's been embraced.
And we're not allowed to say, sorry, you can't do that because then we have a plan, a methodology that we
So it's kind of a balance between, we have to maintain a core framework that works, but we have to be able to bring on all this new stuff at the same time, which is kind of interesting.
And the other final point around things to don't forget is, live in a world of show me why you're doing something, don't tell me why you're doing it. That goes back to what the pushback we had that said, you can't tell me how to do my business, and we were able to show them the issues we were solving that they called out, by the way, we didn't make them up. They called out when we showed them what we were doing to solve those, the face changed, the attitude changed. When you tell them we're going to do this, you're going to, the wall goes up every time. Chapter 2. I talked about this a little bit before, and that is, we've worked for almost 2 years trying to get to this point. We recognize vividly that we're not in nirvana. We haven't made it, and we'll never make it, and we're going to keep thinking that way. So going into 2014, what we're working on is our chapter 2. We finished chapter 1, or it's finishing. What's our chapter 2? What are we going to look like moving forward in the future that's going to do things better, more effectively, and gain people's attention so that they know to come and work with us? And really, there are 2 areas. One is change the model, and we're going to change the model by focusing on, I should also point out, we did a focus group 3 months ago, 4 months ago, where we had an outside company come in and get all the relevant players in a room and let them dump without us being, you do a retrospective I talked about, you're in the room. They're a little less willing to say, you're terrible. So we got a third party to come in and really let them dump and say, we didn't like this, we don't like this. We took that information, all our retrospectives, and we took it, we pulled it together, and we said, moving forward, what's clear to us? Interdependencies. We don't really pay too much attention to those, we let people worry about those. We have a role, we've decided, to help point out, document, visualize what the interdependencies between different groups are so that they understand who plays off of who and what's going to happen, and they can see it at the beginning of the project and throughout. That's very clear to us. Second one, give me another one.
Planning.
Oh, planning. I showed you all our steps, right? We have a business objectives meeting, an iterative planning meeting, and all the way through. There's something missing from there we're looking for. What we realized is we assume when you come to that business objectives meeting, you got your act together. Guess what?
That is
They don't have their act together. Some do. Some who have been through it before do. A lot of people don't have their act together. So what's clear is we need to add an element that helps them plan and say, you need to think about this, this, and this. You're not thinking, think about it like that, you'll be more effective. So we're going to add that planning role. And the third thing, I remember, what's hot? This is, again, getting away from checklisting. Instead of worrying about every step along the way, we're going to put a new play into the game that says, when you go to a stand-up meeting as the engagement manager, you're going to focus on what's hot. If you meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays for 15 minutes of time standing around a table, don't try to get through every possible issue there ever was in this project in that 15 minutes, because that goes for 15 minutes and 22 seconds and the next person's knocking at the door trying to get in. Focus on what's hot. What are the 3 key issues we have to deal with and talk about and be transparent about within this meeting? And on Thursday, that's Tuesday, on Thursday, we'll talk about the next 4. But don't try to achieve it all in one time. Focus on what's hot. That's the remodeling piece. The other piece is communication. And I'm being as transparent with you as can be. We have proven to ourselves that we're not good communicators. We've been busy doing it, trying it, working it. We don't communicate very well. We recognize it, we've heard it. What we're going to do moving forward in 2014, we're going to close the loop. What that means is, when you have a retrospective, when you have a focus group, when you have people tell you, give you advice on what they feel about how things are working, and you make changes, you better go back and tell them what you did, because they're not by osmosis going to get it, that you made changes based on what they advised or information you got from them. They appreciate, if they know it, they'll appreciate it. They'll feel better about trying to help and get there. But we've done a mediocre job at closing the loop back around. We've made changes, but we don't tell anybody that we made the changes. We need to do that. The second piece is close the loop.
Measurement,
Oh,
macro and
Q and Q. Quantitative and qualitative measurement. I had measurement, if you remember my slide, I had all the sections, the last thing up there was measurement, other one not so good at. We've decided in 2014, we're gonna look at measuring how does the engagement team do? That's sort of the quantitative measurement. Are we doing a good job? And we're gonna try to measure engagements as singular items. Is what's coming out of that? What is the quantitative metric?
How are you gonna measure it? Oh, you don't know yet?
Yeah, we're not done with the plan yet. We're
Yeah.
trying to get
We're hoping you guys can tell us.
Let's like some ideas.
I'm not a naysayer. I've met you before.
Yeah, fair enough.
Love to hear it.
Well, and the answer to that is, while not fully built out, but we know what we're gonna do, and we're gonna build dashboards. And they're gonna be transparent and available to everybody, and we look at them as micro dashboards and macro dashboards. And the micro is gonna be about this engagement, what was expected, how did we measure against what we said we were gonna do in the timeframes we said we were gonna do it. And the macro is going to be, how many groups are we really dealing with? How many engagements, based on all the things that are going on, are we getting done? How are we doing it, though? It's more the not the quantity, the qualitative look at things. But we're gonna try to build those dashboards, and your next question is, well, how are you gonna do that? Don't know, that's Columbo's job to worry about.
I was wondering if you would also get feedback from the people who participated by maybe asking questions and have ratings or something.
Well, and by default, we already have that in place, that's the retrospective, and we're going to get, the point is to gather that information, and you would apply it on a probably a quarterly basis to looking at ourselves, the pluses and the minuses of what we're doing. I think we have the vehicles in place to make these things happen, but we're not gathering it and putting it in one place and looking at it. Part of that feels like we don't have time to do that, but
Why do you think it was that measurement didn't become such a priority? Was it because you were focusing on other areas, or was it because of the end?
you know that stack of paper, I got my own stack of paper, okay, the measurement's down here. We recognized it from the beginning, called it out from the beginning. It was something we found very difficult. We've tried a tool, hasn't worked very effectively for us, and we spent a lot of time on that tool, and people's inputting a lot of information, and we're not really getting out of it what we want to. So there's a little bit of wasted time there, and we don't have much to show for it. So our position now is a big step backwards. What do we want to know about ourselves? Now how do we go get that?
Yeah, I'll add to that. In chapter 1, we thought that what was important to measure was we could show value by doing some capacity planning. You know, we have a vantage point that not many people have in the company. We know what's happening. We know when projects are coming up. We know when certain groups are going to get taxed more than others. So we thought, let's figure out how many cycles people are spending, and therefore we could probably add value by telling people the corporate marketing group has capacity for this. So we did this capacity analysis, and it was a nightmare. I mean, people saw me in the hallway, they walked the other way. It was really, really horrific. So
And she didn't have to deliver the presentation.
yeah, and then it just was horrible. And so that's not what people want from us. They don't want that. And our management, I guess, didn't want it either. But we thought, we can tell when people are maxed out.
We got the, oh, that's good. Why don't you present that as staff? I did. Never again.
So we were measuring the wrong thing in chapter 1, and now in chapter 2, we're trying to figure out what really is our value, what to measure, what should we be measuring. And that's what we're figuring
The
out.
cool thing is, after a couple of years, we think we can be a little more predictive for like 2014, so we can almost predict specific engagements that are annual in nature that we know will come around, so we know what month they're coming back around. We know the campaigns are ongoing, and we know when the huge product launches tend to happen. So we're going to try to put a roadmap, sort of a calendar together for 2014, the first time we've done this, which ties back to when the busy periods are going to be and how much cycles are required from corporate marketing. So that's that's fun because it's a little more proactive, and maybe something we can give management that we couldn't give them like a year ago.
What percentage of EMC marketing across the different divisions have used you? I mean, how
Good question.
Yeah.
That's a perfect question, and that's the dashboard answer.
Oh,
is to
okay.
say, but we actually know, so Steve's done a whole bunch of work in the last month or so to look at that, and I'm going to venture a guess. I mean, 38 or 40-something engagements.
Yeah.
We listed out every single organization that has tapped us. I would venture a guess that it's over half of, and don't be bound by marketing, it's more than marketing comes to us. I would venture to say over half to 3/4 maybe have come forward and utilized us in some fashion. But one of our goals is to make the list of what's that other 25% or 50% or whatever, and say we got to get out to them and make them fully aware of us.
As I said earlier, one of the things that is enforced now is every substantive product launch goes through the process. They can't launch a new product, without coming to us. There's no way to do it. So that's goodness, because it breeds consistency.
That's another big, somebody, I don't know if you John, but how does the word get spread? Well, when you can't launch a product without going through this team, that word gets out. How did that happen? Well, you had to work with them, that spreads even into engineering. They know about us because there's no way to get the product out the door until you come to us.
Yeah, and also, with the different corporate marketing groups, we have, some of the corporate marketing groups are extreme supporters of us. Some like it and they'll go along with it, but we have groups, if you have multiple, as David mentioned about the going to the kitchen versus the living room, if you have a number of asks of different groups within corporate marketing, you'll be stopped by certain groups in corporate marketing if you try to engage them directly, and you'll be directed back to us to begin the engagement, and that's where we're starting to get a lot of the non-marketing organizations as word gets out, and it's being enforced more within marketing that they're not going to work on things without it coming through us and being organized into an engagement.
So some of it comes within where they get pushback.
Yep.
And you need to understand, I mean, EMC is one big place, and to get your message out to 65,000 employees is not practical or real, but you just keep trying to spread your word and get it out there. And some of it works through pushback when somebody from God knows where in the company jumps over and jumps into branding creative, who is a great proponent these days.
Yep.
They were the first ones to say, like, I don't need you, I know how to be creative. When they come in, they go, go see them.
The reform smoker
Go see them.
is like the most
Yes,
exciting.
here's the URL,
They
click
are
on it,
unbelievable.
there's ring the doorbell. So you had a question?
Yeah, it's a little out of left field, but I know, for example, IBM and CA and so on, within the product marketing function, functionally, is kicking around Agile techniques of their own. I'd be surprised if EMC didn't. What sort of difference in the interaction with you was doing your own Agile process?
Yeah.
Is there, or haven't you run into that?
Haven't really run into it, I'll let you go in a second, but I will say, product marketing is our conduit into engineering, and that's how they announce a product, is through product marketing. So our product marketing world knows that they are the business owner for a product launch. And they know by hitting a wall in 100 other places, it can't get done unless you go here. And we suffer from one bad thing, is that you don't announce a product and then 2 months later announce another product. Individual, I'm responsible for product X. I announce a product today. I'm not announcing another one 3 weeks from now and another one 4 weeks from then. I'm doing my thing, and that's probably one of my 2 for the year that I do. And then the next product is another guy. So you're educating people again and again and again on the process. It spreads a little, but those launch captains are almost always newbies to us every time. So we have to ground them and get them started. But we're fortunate that we have the position that you can't get anywhere without getting to us in the product launch world. So that's our interaction with them to date.
And there are pockets of activity where people do their own marketing, and I see that in acquisitions a lot. So we buy a company, but we haven't really integrated them yet. So they come on board with their own marketing team and their own methodology, different than what we do. And that happens for a period of time until upper management says it's time to integrate them, or they might decide to leave them as a separate division and let them function on their own.
Yeah.
So
Or even
really,
spin them off?
they
Yeah,
may
we are-
maintain their own brand and logos and never come to our process, because at a high business level, that's the way that they're portrayed to the outside.
And as a company, just to be honest, anybody can figure it out if you go pay attention. but we acquire a lot of companies, but our basic methodology is you acquire them, and you just let them hang and do their thing for quite a while before things start to get integrated. There's 100 groups in the company that say, can we just integrate them and make them do it our way right now? But that's just not the way, you know, the utmost highest management team wants to do things. They let them sort of slowly meld their way in. Sometimes they never do, but it takes a while. It's never a quick process. I think, yeah, look at that. So, questions and any more questions? I'm glad you guys have asked as many as you have. It's